Welcome everyone to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3 Jimmy. It is Wednesday, November the 22nd, 2023, and if it's Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So let's give a big shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. And if you haven't already, please hit that like button to help our numbers out. Subscribe to the show. And then if you're here watching tonight, invite a guest so you guys have something interesting to talk about the rest of the week. With that being said, Tom, we have a jam-packed show as usual,
yeah.
and actually, folks, we need to apologize that we did not air a show last week, and that was because of some technical difficulties and another commitment that we were helping some young ladies out with a scholarship pageant. So we were both taken away. Tommy was one of the active organizers, and I was one of the judges. And so, since we had already committed to this a while back, we tried to air a previous show, and that didn't quite work out. So, hopefully we'll provide twice the entertainment and fun with this particular show to make up for it.
Yeah, Jimmy. So, again, we want to come back full speed. So we want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Got a little catching up to do over the last couple of weeks. And of course, Jimmy, that starts out with our birthdays, Jimmy. So we have to actually go back 1 week and then forward.
Okay, no problem. We can do 2 weeks worth of birthdays.
Exactly. So we're going to start off with our birthdays this week. And, before we get started, and we'll hopefully have time to talk about it at the end, we want to wish everybody and their families
happy Thanksgiving.
Happy holiday weekend for the Thanksgiving week, and also safe travels if you are going to be driving over the next day or so. So, Jimmy, let's go ahead and start out with the birthdays for this week. Again, going back 1 week and forward another week. Our first birthday baby, if you like watching movies and you've ever watched the Black Panther, you're probably going to know this guy. He was kind of one of the antagonists.
Oh, yes. He was the Gorilla King.
Exactly. Winston Duke. His birthday was about a week ago on November the 15th. Okay. So we will not say happy birthday, but let's just say a belated happy birthday.
A belated happy birthday. We could say that.
Exactly. So that is our first birthday for this week to Winston Duke. Another fan favorite, if you watch movies, is a gentleman by the name of Larry Hennigs. Jimmy, you probably recognize this face, but he was one of the characters on the 5 Heartbeats and also on the movie Ray.
Okay.
So belated happy birthday wish. I believe he was on November the 16th as well. So hope you had a great birthday. The next birthday baby is one of the icons in tennis history. Jimmy, this is Dominique Dawes.
Oh, yes. I remember Dominique.
Yeah, she was a medalist, of course, in the Olympics, and definitely a great gymnast, one of the all-time greats.
She was a pioneer that opened some doors for and encouraged a lot of young Black girls to get into gymnastics. At that time, not very many of us was in gymnastics, or even pursuing gymnastics.
Correct. So, I mean, again, that is why making sure that people understand who these great heroes and sheroes are so important, because, she was part of the foundation, that led to the greats that we have up today. So we want to, of course, acknowledge and wish her a happy birthday. Next, of course, is one of the great NFL players of all the time, especially on the defensive line. We got the great Mike Strahan,
yes.
NFL Hall of Famer defensive tackle, one of the New York Giants all-time greats, but now also has reinvented himself into a TV personality. And so whether you're a sports fan or even not, if you just watch the morning news these days nationally, you're going to see this face. His birthday was on November the 21st. Next, this is an old school fan favorite, Jimmy, the fly jock, Tom.
Oh, yeah, from Chicago to Dallas. That's right.
Exactly. So for those for back in the day, if you used to watch, not watch, but listen to a lot of radio, Tom joined at the Fly Jock. He still, I believe, has a nationally syndicated radio station. His birthday is actually tomorrow, November the 23rd. Okay. And so we want to wish him a happy birthday on tomorrow, of course. Our next is another NFL all-time great, the Donovan McNabb.
Okay. Philadelphia quarterback.
Yeah, also was an all-time great with the Syracuse football team as well.
Yes, he did. That's right. He did come out of Syracuse.
Exactly, and led the NFL Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl back in his prime. So his birthday is on November the 25th. We want to, of course, wish him, of course, a great birthday. And the very last that we'll have for this week, coming up on November the 27th, in I guess about 5 more days, great actor and one of the funniest guys
Yes.
from back in the day, Jimmy. This is Jaleel White. Most of you know him as Steve Urkel on Family Matters. Great family show, Jimmy. Very funny. Back in the day, Jimmy, when they actually had quality shows about family, sticking together, Jimmy. And I think something, I don't really watch TV that much anymore because the quality of the
It's just not there, Tom.
yeah, but when you go back to Family Matters, you go back, of course, to the Cosby Show, or even if you go back to the Bernie Mac Show, a lot of quality family shows with strong black male leads, Jimmy, and I think we need more of that today.
Well, we need more strong black males for certain, Tom, and definitely the programming should reflect that also.
So those are our birthday babies for this week. For those out there who are watching us, who follow us, if you had a November birthday, belated happy birthday wish to you. If you have a birthday that is coming up, we wish you a happy birthday over the next week until next week's show, Jimmy. So now let's go ahead and get to our news of the day, Jimmy. Actually, we're going to start off with a story that you made me aware of, Jimmy, that, you know, a couple of folks who span multiple generations.
Yes.
They now
Quincy, Jennifer, and what's the rapper's name?
Chance the Rapper, and of course.
See, I just don't keep up with today's rappers, man. I'm so old school. So I heard he was a rapper, but I don't think I've ever heard any of his music. So, but yes, Tom, that's an interesting story where they purchased a theater in the Chicago area, man. So, and personally, Tom, after traveling the country, and I'm going to, you know, me and the wife are going to several places, man, and a lot of these small town tourist areas where they have these theaters and mostly country. So, and you know, they perform there. The tickets are cheap, and I always thought, man, it would be nice if we had like a Motown or a black area, man, where we all just kind of went and was a tourist area, and that had concert halls where a lot of our greats could perform, man, and we could just go get, you know, cheap tickets and watch them in concert, rather than having to wait for them to come to us. You know, maybe if we had one of these cities that was set up like that, we could go to them. But I think them purchasing the theater, man, is a good first step.
I agree, Jimmy. And, you know, if there's nothing else, you know, we love some good entertainment. And in the Chicago area, these three, along with a developer investor, Tyler Nevios, I believe is his name, purchased and are going to reopen a renovated theater called the Ramova Theater in Bridgeport, Illinois, Jimmy. And they bought this piece of property. I guess it was pretty much abandoned. They bought it in 2017 for $1. And
that's a really good price, Tom.
Exactly, but it's going through massive renovations that are not going to be cheap. But it was a 1,500 live music venue. It's going to be a 1,500 seat live music venue, beer garden, and grill in partnership with a company called The Other Half Brewing Company, and it's supposed to be initially expected to reopen in fall of 2023. I don't know if that's going to come to pass, but Jimmy, but I think they're seeing an order of magnitude of about 38, close to $40 million in renovations to get this project going, in addition to a $9 million subsidy of tax increment financing to get this up. And it looks like the history behind it, Jimmy, has been closed down for about 40 years. But it opened in 1929 as a single-screen movie theater, and it was closed in 1985. But it's now been reopening. It was supposed to be demolished, Jimmy, and they were able to save it and put it on the National Register of Historic Places in 2021.
Okay.
And so that led to where we are right now, where they were pretty much able to get this facility for pennies literally, and renovating it and saving a piece of Midwestern and Chicago history.
Well, if you're in the area, Tom, if you live in the area or you're visiting the area, please go and support them in this effort. Whatever plays they have, concerts they have, whatever's going on, Tom. We need to see if we can get behind this man and make it a success to encourage others to do the same. We need to have some places that are uniquely ours to support. You go to Ashwood or Asheville, go to Pigeon Cove, you go to some of these places, man, in Nashville or in other states. Where you see theater after theater with country stars, old rock and roll stars who have their own little performing halls. And Tom, the tickets are like $10, $15.
Wow.
So you can go to a show. You can go to 3, 4 concerts a day if you wanted to, and spend a whole week or a weekend, catching a lot of different performances. And so I hope we get to that point also, Tom, where we have a group of theaters, man, that we support and have entertainment that's catered to us.
Yeah, I would agree, Jimmy. And we've got a lot of entertainers, a lot of talent within our community. And
We do.
having a venue, and this is one thing that we've talked about, Jimmy, in the past, is not just being the content creators, not just being the talent, resource of talent, but also being able to own and monetize the talent that we bring to the table, and not creating wealth for other communities, but to keep that wealth in our own community, just
Correct.
like every other group does. And so that's the key. That's what we have to do. But before we go to our next show, I do want to acknowledge a couple of guests that we have on the chat line. We have the commission, Brother Ed Gray, who is on the chat line today. And of course, we're also, just as a heads up, we'll talk about this briefly at the end of the show, going to have the commission on our show next week at Wednesday.
Long overdue, Tom.
Long overdue.
We're big fans of the commission here. So, it's long overdue to get him on the show.
Exactly. So he is definitely one of our resident historians and an icon in the DFW and in the state of Texas. We're going to look forward to see what he's been doing and what he wants to share with us on next Wednesday. So we want to make sure that everybody does join us for next week's show.
And if you haven't already, Tom, make sure that you catch his show on Saturday.
Absolutely.
Go out and find it, people. It's worth checking out.
Good deal. I also want to have our fraternity brother Kevin Johnson on the line.
KJ.
From the DC metropolitan area, joining us tonight. I don't know if he's actually in town because he's originally from the Dallas area, so I don't know if he's in DC or in Dallas. But either way, happy Thanksgiving to you both.
For a moment, Tom, I thought it was the old Phoenix Sun point guard who was watching the show.
And then, of course, we have Uncle Asar Al-Kabelan as well in the house. Originally from Bryan, Texas, but in the Austin, Texas area. Uncle Asar, of the African Genius podcast as well, who, of course, is a follower of Black Men Speak, and we are a follower of the African Genius podcast. Everything Pan-Africanism. So we want to, of course, invite people to find and give him a shout out and watch his show as well. And hey.
Well, after I finally got the link, I did go check it out, Tom, and it's worth it. So he does a great job. So, we need to make sure that we support the effort from everyone who's trying to do something positive and get a positive message out.
All right. Let's go to our next story, Jimmy.
What do we have next?
One of our, for those of you who like to get up early in the morning,
which is not me.
Thanksgiving, I know it, and watch the Thanksgiving Day parade, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, because I presume that there are many of them across the country. Guess what? Alabama A&M University is in the house. They are going to be making history as a historically Black college, the first HBCU band that is going to be leading the show this year.
Well, Tom, are they going to play their traditional music, or are they going to, let's say, change it up a little bit for the for television?
That's a good question. They're going to probably do a little bit of both. But the Maroon and White Marching Band is set to lead the 97th Annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is going to be on tomorrow morning. I think it starts around 7:30 or 8 a.m. You can watch it on NBC. So make sure you tune into that. to show them some love. But this is the first historically black college or university.
Well, let's hope it's not the last time.
Exactly. And so they're going to be joined by the Dancing Divas, which is their dance troupe. And
Ooh, Tom, that's going to be interesting to watch because our dancing compared to, let's say, a school like A&M when they have done this would be a little different. The
it
style
is.
is a little different. So
So they're going to be doing a special performance of the famous Rockettes of the Radio City Music Hall. So they're going to probably do a
oh, okay.
rendition of something traditional, in addition to giving it a little flavor that, we know how to make some things rock.
Well, let's bring it. So
Exactly.
I may have to either watch it or tape it and watch it later on. So, but I'm
Yes,
going to
I think
watch it.
exactly. But their band director, congratulations to their
Congratulations.
band director, Carlton Wright, who was the one who initiated this. He went and had been wanting to participate and march in this parade. He was able to find the app, submit their application, and then after weeks of compiling through everything, and I guess watching the videos of each of the marching bands, they actually chose Alabama A&M in 2022 for this year's parade. So I guess they've known this for a little while. But
Okay.
big thing is congratulations, Alabama A&M making history. And so, Jimmy, I'm not one who likes to get up early in the morning on Thanksgiving Day, but I may have to get up just to turn the TV on and show them some love.
Well, Tom, like I
And
said,
I never turn on my TV either. So if I get up in time, this will be a special deal.
well, there you go. So yeah, we're going to give our support and our love to Alabama A&M.
Absolutely. And best of luck. We know they will do a great job.
Yes, they will.
Our next story, we got a lot of great stuff going on, Jimmy, is that the two of the all-time greats are going to be inducted and have been chosen for the National Women's Hall of Fame. First is the GOAT, Serena Williams.
Tom, I'm very surprised that she's gotten in first ballot this quickly. It seemed like she just retired maybe a year or two ago, and she's already, well deserved. I mean, no one deserves it more than she does. But
Jimmy, can you hear me? Oh, okay.
yes,
I thought you were still talking.
no.
We have Serena Williams, and then, of course, the icon of civil rights, one of the great icons of civil rights, Ruby Bridges, has also or is going to be inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame next year as well. I don't think that you could probably select any, two better, even though, let me see here. Okay, gotcha. I don't think you could have selected two better candidates for this, Jimmy, but the great Serena Williams and Ruby Bridges will both be inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. I thought I had cut myself off there momentarily, Jimmy.
No.
But, they were previously announced. And if you want to look at this, Jimmy, I believe it is going to be in March of next year. I don't have the exact date, but from my understanding, it is going to be nationally televised. And the class of inductees include scientists, activists, performers, and athletes who are change makers and are the inspiration for the next generation of women who are coming out. And Jimmy, I cannot really think of two classier.
Well, that's true, Tom. And plus, I need to correct myself because I thought these were two different inductions. I thought Serena was going into the Tennis Hall of Fame. But congratulations to both and for all of those who've been nominated and going in. So it's a big honor. And certainly we will hopefully see if we can get a video of it or at least a highlight of it to put on the show when it happens.
That would be great. Other nominees include the likes of Loretta Ross, who is the founder of the National Center for Human Rights, Education in Atlanta, Dr. Patricia Bath, who was the first Black woman physician to receive a medical patent. So all that being said, there are a lot of great women who they will be joining now in the National Women's Hall of Fame. We congratulate them both. And Jimmy, just more Black girl magic.
Well, you know what, Tom? We need to get some strong Black man, father, husband magic going also to go with that.
Gotcha. Because the sisters are out there doing it.
They're doing it, Tom. They're doing their things, man. So they're leaving us behind a little bit. So we just need to get our act together and catch up, man. Although the brothers who watch this show, man, are all outstanding, great brothers, man. So, and Tom, let's give a quick shout out to the brothers at UT Texas Arlington.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you of course, I served as a judge, and you're one of the organizers, man. Uh, but you guys put on a really great pageant, man, scholarship pageant. Made me very proud to be a part of it. So, and you guys did great work. So I know some of the challenges that chapter has had with bouncing back off the death penalty. Yeah, very proud of them young brothers, man, and for the work that you do with working with them. So all of you guys should be proud of yourselves.
Yes, sir. Also like to acknowledge Brother Frederick B. Roberts Esquire,
Esquire.
who joined the chat room. Brother Roberts, always glad to have you. Thank you for joining us this evening, and you guys chime in if y'all have any thoughts on what we're saying today. But just a lot of great news is coming out. But every now and again, there's some things that we need to make sure that we pay attention to, Jimmy. So I found something else that now, especially going into Thanksgiving, going into the holiday season in particular, there's going to be a lot of eating, drinking, and being merry. And, I found an article within the last couple of days that was a bit concerning. And we've actually talked about this on our show in the past. And, I found it. It was a study that has been looking back over the last 50 years, Jimmy, that has shown that the pesticides that are very common, excuse me, very common in homes, gardens, lawns, and things that we have everyday access to have ultimately killed the sperm production in men over the last 50 years, Jimmy. According to a new analysis of studies over the last 50 years, common pesticides used in homes, gardens, lawns, and that are sprayed in foods that we eat have created a dramatic decline in the sperm count among men worldwide. This is not just in the United States, fallen to the degree of about 50%. And this was a study that has been acknowledged by Melissa Perry, Dean of the College of Public Health at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia.
Well, Tom, we've been talking about this a few times. It's not just in the pesticides, because, of course, the pesticides get into the water supply. And our water filtration doesn't quite filter these things out. So we've seen a steady decline. And of course, this is the first time we talked about this study, Tom, but we talked about other studies where testosterone levels have been dropping in men. The PSI with handshakes have been dropping in men. And of course, our woke society keeps telling us that masculinity is toxic, which doesn't help either, man. So, this is why I push for us to get our act together, Tom. And there's nothing wrong with being a masculine, strong man. We need to get more of those back into the framework of building strong men and stop going along with this nonsense. So we're being chemically altered. We're being psychologically altered, Tom. And what is going to happen when you don't have any real men to defend your home or your country? You're subject to be taken over.
Yeah, Jimmy, it is a scary thing. And I mean, you don't know that going to the grocery store and getting fruits and vegetables.
Wash your food, Tom.
Exactly. We'll
Put in that soap and water and wash all. Don't just assume that this stuff is clean. Wash it in your sink. Wash as much of it off as you possibly can. And because some of it's already been absorbed into the food. You're going to eat it anyway.
Exactly. The study demonstrated that there was a strong association between two very common insecticides, organophosphates and N-methyl carbamates, and the significant decline in the sperm level concentration in men. One of the most frequently used compounds in the world, the organophosphates, are the main components in nerve gas, herbicides, pesticides, and insecticides, and are also used to create plastics and solvents. Also, when you're looking at the N-methyl carbamates, they are structurally and operationally similar to organophosphates, killing insects by damaging their brains and nervous systems, but they're also creating havoc in the human body as well.
Well, Tom, you brought up another good point. It's another story that we didn't talk about, but we need to, is the plastics. The stuff is made, and so when you reuse plastics, those plastics slowly break down and get into your food supply also, and the same effect is happening. So we need to be aware. Try not to reuse plastic. Try to use as much glass as possible if you can, or even paper, or even cartons. But plastics, when they start to break down, can be bad. So don't reuse them. Don't throw them away. Recycle them, but get them out of your house. Get them out of your food supply.
Yeah, Jim, and it's a bit scary because at the end of the day, these are things that there was a point in time, Jimmy, and I don't know that the I think the number of people who smoke in the United States, I know that has gone down, presumably, over the years. But there was a point in time where the U.S. government and, of course, the big nicotine business, they said that smoking was fine, had no harmful effects to your health. There was a point.
Tom, they said it was healthy for you
Exactly.
for a very long time. As people were dying of lung cancer, they were still pushing the narrative that smoking was healthy, even for pregnant women, which we found was that combination was disastrous for newborns.
Yep. And, they said it's not just pesticides, but researchers are also exploring the role of obesity, poor diet, chronic disease, and exposure to environmental toxins like solution, PFSA, and other potential toxins. Some are now even looking to radiation from mobile phone use as a potential reason for the drop in sperm count.
Well, Tom, I've been talking about that and warning against that for a while. I don't put those things up to my head. I make sure I use a analog cable, the old-fashioned one, to plug in. So I don't even do Bluetooth. So just like this one, I use an analog cable to plug in and talk. Yeah, no, do not put those phones up to your head. A lot of folks who end up getting brain cancer on that side of their head. And I know we don't want to ruin the cell phone industry, but that those things do emit radiation, and to have that close to your head cannot be a good thing, Tom.
Right. There was a recent study, Jimmy, that found that men between the ages of 18 and 22 who said they used their phones more than 20 times a day had a 20% higher risk of low sperm count.
Put it on speaker, guys. Put it on speaker.
18 to 22 years old, prime,
Oh, that's prime. Yes, prime age, Tom.
Exactly. 20% higher risk.
Your sperm count should be at its max at that during those ages.
Right. These men also had a 30% higher risk of low sperm concentration, which obviously is the number of sperm per milliliter. One of the things that they suggest is using organic food is a surefire way to reduce the potential risks associated with pesticides. And this is, of course, coming from the experts. While organic food may not be more nutritious, the majority have little to no pesticide residue when you're eating organic food.
But Tom, organic food costs more.
You're very right.
And so this is a way to weed out the population by sticking the junk and the poison in the stores that poor people shop at, and the fresh organic stuff in the suburban stores where more wealthier, affluent people shop. So, so Tom, once again, the society is being shafted, and where's the FDA and our government to protect people? But rather than doing that, Tom, they're in the pockets of a big business, big pharmacy, big tech, and so they just get their way because they can pay the money to get their way.
Exactly.
I'm still not convinced that artificial meat and artificial chicken, Beyond Burgers, Impossible Burgers, the artificial steaks are nutritious and good for you. So. But we'll see in about 50 years when you see the commercial that if you ate Beyond Burgers back when you were young and developed cancer, that call this law office because you may be able to get a settlement.
And also, Jimmy, the hormones in some of those same, food substitutes or meat substitutes have also been found. And so that's another thing you have to be concerned about is the hormones in Beyond Beef and some of those other substitutes.
Well, I may have to speed up the growth process somehow. So you're absolutely correct, man. So I try not to eat it, man. I try to stick to natural stuff, but it just costs a lot more money to be natural. So people just do what you can.
Right. One of the things that some of the scientists say is that if organic food isn't available, is too pricey, recommend peeling and or washing thoroughly fruits and vegetables with water to steer away from detergents and other advertised items, rinsing with water, and reducing the potential levels of pesticide on some of these foods.
Tom, not just rinsing with water, Actually, soap and water and wash your fruit and vegetables. Well, I mean, actually get the scrubbing pad out and wash it. Even if you get it from a Whole Foods or if you think it's natural, still wash it anyway just to be safe.
Yep, yep. Looks like we have the a counselor online, Miss Elisa Patterson,
Okay.
online as well. So we want to thank her for joining us this evening as
Yes.
well. And happy Thanksgiving to you as well, cuz. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next story, Jimmy, and a couple of international stories before we go to a story that I think is going to be pretty interesting if folks have not seen it yet. But the first story, Jimmy, is that Liberia has just elected a new president.
They did.
Actually, it was seems like obviously a very very close race, but one of the hometown favorites, President Weah, who was the incumbent, the gentleman to your right here, he was actually a an athlete, a nationally renowned athlete. Lost Jimmy to one of our fraternity brothers, Joseph Boakai, who is now officially elected as the new president of Liberia, now the president-elect with 50.64%, I think.
Oh, that was close.
Yeah, this was as of Monday. They may have gotten a few more votes in since then, but he had 50.64% of the vote but to George Weah, the incumbent, who had 49.36% of the vote, but he did concede the election to the president-elect Joseph Boakai. Of course, also a member of our great fraternity, and says that his focus is to take a hard look at mining concessions and contracts to ensure that, all of these mineral contracts that are extracting wealth, not just from Liberia, but other parts of the motherland, are benefiting the people of the country. And he also was the former president who lost to President Weah in 2017 in a runoff and campaigned on a promise of rescuing Liberia. So his focus is cleaning up corruption and providing better basic services to the country and the people of Liberia.
Okay. Yes, Tom. Of course, we continue to advocate for Africa to become more autonomous, and we need more forward-thinking leaders who are thinking this way. But also, they need to increase their processing capacity to take the minerals and refine them themselves and then sell them, as opposed to sell the raw minerals and buy back the refined goods.
Yeah, and I mean that really comes down to know-how. And as we've seen in most of the countries, the 54 countries in the African continent, they have all of the raw materials.
Well, especially Tom. I mean, EVs are becoming very popular. They are popular, and some of the cobalt and nickel that's needed. Africa has some of the largest, if not the largest, supply of that, which is why China's taking such an interest in Africa as they try to corner the EV market. But if they can get to a point where they can actually process and make the batteries in Africa and then sell them to the EV makers, as opposed to selling the raw goods to China and let China make the batteries.
Yep. And so, we've been talking about, and we'll continue to talk about what's happening throughout the African continent, Jimmy, because, in a lot of cases, what's happening is that, what a lot of countries are going through is what some call neocolonialism. So most of the African countries achieved their independence somewhere in the 50s and 60s. But what happened is, even though the French and the Spaniards and
They continue to maintain control, Tom.
exactly, and what they'll do,
Through subsidies and money, but not much, not enough to free you and liberate you, just enough to keep you dependent on I guess their master country. So, but the French were very big, and so of course we've done quite a few stories in the last month or so on the number of countries that are kicking the French out. Finally,
yes, sir.
getting around to kicking the French out, man. And then so I'm encouraged, Tom, by the signs that as these young democracies continue to grow and invest in their own countries, open up trade amongst themselves, opening up travel within the continent of Africa is a good first start. And economic activities will happen after that, man. So let's continue to pray for our African brothers and sisters, man. They can continue to develop, to gain their freedom and independence from Western powers.
And let's take a play out of your playbook, Jimmy. It's not just pray, Jimmy, but to form alliances, to
Yes.
advocate, to do business between the United States and South America and the African continent. Again, everybody looks at Africa as one monolith, but you've got 54 different countries, and each of those 54 different countries have a very complex set of demographics in terms of different cultures, different ethnicities, different languages, and different cultures. And that is a lot to say, but for those who've lived there, those who've traveled there, they understand the complexity of that. But as we've talked about as well, a lot of this started with the Berlin Conference in 1884, where the European countries got together, sat at the table, and figured out how they were going to exploit and control the African continent in order to build their economies post-slavery. And that is what we're seeing today. And so in a lot of cases, to your point, Jimmy, when we look at the Malis, the Nigers, now the Burkina Fasos, who said enough is enough, these presidents that have been so-called democratically elected are truly funded by the colonizers in order to make sure that they maintain control and giving them access to all the mineral resources, extracting all of the wealth out of the countries, leaving most of the people
And
dead.
Tom, these leases are dirt cheap. The country get very little off of it. I
Right.
mean, the leadership gets the pocket the money in the form of a bribe, but the leases themselves are so damn generous, man. It's ridiculous. One other thing, Tom, just while we're on this, before we leave the
Yes.
continent of Africa, just a follow up. I wanted to report on this last week, but we didn't do the show.
Sure.
So I did a check to see where we are with the billions of dollars that were pledged to Africa, and that money still has not been released. And so I'm calling on everyone watching this show and everyone that you know, to call your congressional officers, congressional officers, or representatives, and encourage them to force the administration to carry through with their pledge. If you pledge this money, Tom, don't put us in a position where you just all talk and no action. So you pledged the money, so we need to follow through with the pledge. Billions of dollars that you've pledged, and gave hope to some people and haven't followed through with $1 of it so far. It's been, Tom, well over a year since this pledge was made.
So the question is this: who is authorized to release those funds? Who has to approve it? Is it just the president? Is the Congress as well?
Well, Tom, you know what? The Congress has not approved money for Ukraine in the latest budget, and so the administration took money that was already appropriated for something else and just reallocated it. And so if the Biden administration needs to reallocate some money that's already been approved because Congress won't give it to them, then do that. Even if you can't uh, 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 come through with the entire, I think it was like $34 billion. If you can't come through with all of it, then fine. Come through with whatever you can, but make a good faith effort to pay some of it with whatever monies you can come up with. If you can scrape money together, billions of dollars for Ukraine to fight a war against Russia, then certainly you can do this and make a similar effort to help keep your pledges and promises, because now the Russians and the Chinese, Tom, are coming through with their pocketbooks open and writing checks to African leaders. In fact, I just saw a story last week where the Russians finally approved like billions of dollars in grain for Africa for free. So I mean, other people are coming through with their promises, keeping their promises, and it makes us look bad when the U.S., the wealthiest nation in the world, can't keep its promises.
Well, Jimmy, you're right, but it's a matter of priorities. I mean, we'll figure out a way to find money for Ukraine. We'll find money for Israel. We'll find.
Oh yeah, that's already taking money from the IRS to make sure Israel is funded. But
Exactly.
Tom, we need to prioritize this. I don't care what other people don't do. I'm saying we need to start calling our congressional representatives and asking them, putting pressure on them. Like, look, I'm not asking for anything that we hadn't pledged, but the government made this pledge, so we need to keep it.
I would agree, Jimmy. And, that's where you have to become politically savvy and more sophisticated as well in order to get what you deserve. Because at the end of the day, Jimmy, it is all of our tax money that's at stake here. So at the end of the day, if it's your tax money, either it's going towards your interest or going towards somebody else's interest. It's your right, it's your obligation to make sure that you're getting value from what you're getting to the U.S. government.
And Tom, and plus, this money could be allocated in such a way to help both parties. I mean, encourage economic development and ties between Black folks here in America and then Africa, and that this money can go a long way to building up infrastructure and taking some of our expertise and knowledge and exporting to Africa, and then taking the money that's allocated by Congress to subsidize that and pay for it. So it becomes a win-win for American companies and for African nations. I mean, that's how a lot of the aid to Israel is used to spend back here in America. As we give them money in one hand, we take it back in the other. So we'll give them billions of dollars, but guess what? They're going to buy ammo, tanks, weapons, and everything else from American companies. A lot of that money's going to come right back to us, man. So we need to do the same thing, Tom, and establish that kind of pipeline with aid to Africa and tied to economic ties with businesses here in America. And so we can go fight for this money for them, Tom, but in return, y'all do business with us and we both grow.
That's very true, very true. And we have another of our supporters, Miss Marion Square, who has jumped on the chat line as well. We want to welcome her as well and thank you for supporting the show as well. And, Uncle Asar has pushed anything to this conversation. He says, why would the United States change the relationship with Africa? They're getting the milk and resources for free. But why would they want to give up billions of dollars considering what they're getting for free already?
He makes a good point, Tom. And all I can say is maybe we shouldn't have opened our mouth pledging to give money that we can't give or not willing to give.
Not willing to give.
Not willing to give. Not that we can't give.
We can find billions of dollars when we want to. All right, Jimmy, let's go ahead and go to our next story, also an international story as well, and talking about Israel. South Africa is now having conversations within their chambers of commerce and the president himself, Cyril Ramaphosa, about cutting ties with Israel for what they consider to be war crimes and atrocities in the conflict with Hamas in Gaza. So South Africa, the fifth largest country in Africa by population with over 60 million people, and the second largest economy on the African continent with 420 billion people, is making moves to cut ties with Israel after South African legislators and President Cyril Ramaphosa calls basically what's happening a humanitarian crisis. Of course, this is on the throes of what happened on October the 7th when Hamas attacked Israel, killed somewhere in the order of magnitude of 1,200 people. But since then, as the Israel army has retaliated against and struck out against Gaza, there have been more than 12,000, going on 13,000. Who knows what that looks like now in Gaza, Jimmy? The majority of them, though, the problem is civilians. So South African lawmakers recently backed a motion calling for the closure of the Israel embassy in the country, that is in South Africa, and cutting diplomatic ties until Israel agrees to a ceasefire in Gaza, so real, genuine humanitarian aid can be provided to the civilians of Gaza and the Palestinians. And again, we want to make sure that we make it very clear. This is not, pro or against anybody, but there are a lot of civilians, a significant number of them children and women, who are dying daily in the order of magnitude of
Tom,
thousands.
this is why war is ugly. And somehow, being a military officer in the Marine Corps, I'm always amazed at how people just don't understand this. War is ugly, Tom. And innocent people die in wars, which is why you be very careful about entering into a war. There's no tit for tat. There's no one for one. You kill one of mine, I kill one of yours, and then we go home. It doesn't work that way. And as long as both sides are capable of waging war, this is one of the very first lessons we learn in war school, is that you have to totally annihilate your enemy, that you got to leave them incapacitated where they cannot wage war against you anymore. If you think about where we were in World War II with Japan, at some point Japan just said, hey, y'all go home, we'll go home, just say bygones. We'll just call it even and put it into the war. Truman did the right thing by saying, no, the only way this war ends is your unconditional surrender. That's the only way it stops. So as long as both parties are capable of waging war, you'll have war. And then more people are going to die in the end. So the most humane thing they can do right now is to let one step aside and let one side win, whoever that's going to be. But somebody has to be the winner. Someone has to be the loser, and the loser has to be totally incapacitated without having any ability to create war in the future. That's the only way you're going to have peace there, Tom. Otherwise, you're going to keep kicking the can down the road, and this is going to continue to happen, and more people are going to die slowly rather than a bunch of people dying right now. And I know that's not a nice way of putting it, but unfortunately, Tom, if you want to invest for peace in the future, somebody had to get their ass kicked totally.
Well, Jimmy, this is the rub. Who's getting their butts kicked, who is dying, who South Africa is saying something teetering on the narrative of a genocide are really civilians, not attacking them in Hamas. And Hamas is underground on the most part. And so when you talk about all of these deaths, it's really not the folks who attacked Israel, so to speak. And really, if you do the research, and I would highly recommend that folks really do your research and understand what this is all about. Because when you think of Gaza, what is Gaza? How did it get there? Who is there? I mean, ultimately, Jimmy, it almost amounts to an open air prison, similar to a concentration camp. When, for those, for instance, who are of Japanese descent in the United States of America during World War II, when they rounded up a lot of Japanese in the United States and put them in concentration camps, that is in essence what we're looking at in Gaza. And that is what this looks like, in the order of magnitude of about 2 million people. No way to get in. No
Well, Tom, the concentration camps here in America were much more restrictive. The folks in Gaza basically have had independence for the last 15 years, 16 years since the PLO was pushed aside and Hamas came to represent the people of that area. And so they get billions of dollars in aid from some coming from, well, now a lot of it, some of it come from, has been restored from America, but there are Islamic nations that pump billions of dollars into the West Bank and the Gaza. And Tom, there's no reason why they could not over this time start developing some industries that will allow them to become self-sufficient and independent from Israel.
But they have do the research. They have no control over their destiny in Gaza.
They have none now, Tom.
That is controlled by Israel. They have no control over their destiny.
Tom, what I'm saying is that what you're saying is true, but this is self-inflicted. With billions of dollars going into the West Bank and Gaza Strip, there's no reason for them not to build power plants, not to build water treatment plants, not to take their money and develop their country. There's no reason for them not to. Now, if you take your money, it's the same thing with a lot of African nations. Do not take your precious resources and buy weapons, guns and bullets, and deprive your people of a peaceful existence. You know, the Gaza Strip and the West Bank is not under attack by Israel. It would have been live and let live. Everybody would have went on their peaceful way, and no one was actually giving them a second thought. Take your money instead of building weapons. They sent thousands upon thousands of missiles that they built, and a lot of that material came from Iran. Well, why take that money and waste the resources when you could have been building hospitals and schools? I mean, you have ocean property there. Hell, build some resort properties there. Open up a tourist area. People love to come visit the area. There's no reason for them to be in this condition, Tom, other than they take the wealth that they have, they use it for military might. They've used it to build their military, attack Israel, and this is the consequence.
But the Palestinians,
now everyone's feeling sorry for the Palestinians.
Palestinians in Gaza have no military might.
Tom, they had enough to attack, and so that was a huge mistake. And unfortunately,
it was actually strategic. It wasn't a huge mistake. It was actually, there's a reason why they attacked. They didn't just get up one morning and decided to attack Israel. There was a reason.
Well, Tom, they've been getting up for 16 years not attacking Israel, and then all of a sudden on October 7th, they decided. If you've been living with it for 16 years, you're going to live with it for another 16, as far as I'm concerned. There was no one provoking you, poking the tiger or the bear to force you into an attack. So whatever you were doing before October 7th, you could have continued to do after October 7th, and just continue to find a way to rebuild and build. But Tom, building is not what they want. I mean, a two-state solution has been offered to the West Bank and Gaza Strip.
By who? By
by the
Israel?
UN, by the Americans, by Israel.
And that's not by Israel, Jimmy. Israel does not
Israel has offered a two-state
Israel
solution,
does
Tom.
not want a two-state solution.
They do, Tom. They don't want a one-state solution because the Palestinians will outnumber them. But a two-state solution has been fine. It's been offered. The Palestinians have turned that down time and time again. So, now we're back to where we are. But unfortunately, Tom, it's going to come down to the same thing. We're just going to have to hold our nose, look the other way, and tolerate what's going on. But somebody has to win that war. Someone has to be totally annihilated, and their capacity to wage war has to be totally wiped out, Tom. And that's
That's
the only way you can have peace afterwards.
I mean, the international community is not going to allow Israel to totally destroy Gaza. 2 million plus civilians. The international community. I mean, the United States is on the sidelines trying to manage this.
And Tom, that's critical on us.
You have countries all over the world who are saying, "Look, y'all need to stand down. Enough is enough."
I mean, look at Japan. They can't even have a standing army. They have a security force, but they don't really have a military. Germany doesn't have a military. I mean, we protect Germany, we protect Japan. And how long has the war been over with? I mean, this is the consequence of when you lose a war, Tom. You have to take away their ability to wage war in order for there to be peace. Japan has peace now and prosperity. Germany has peace and prosperity. Italy has peace and prosperity. All the countries that we defeated and put very stringent conditions on their ability to wage war after that, build a military. But unfortunately, that's the path to peace. Try to do it the way we're doing it now, Tom, by keeping both sides alive and able to fight each other, funding both sides. All we're doing is continuing the suffering that innocent people are going to have to go through, because at some point it's going to come down to whatever act is committed is going to be so horrendous that Israel is just going to drop a couple of bombs and do the same as we did to Japan and just wipe both areas out.
I don't believe that. If it gets to that point, you're talking about something much worse if they decide to do something of that magnitude. I believe a two-state solution is the only option in order to begin to neutralize what's going to continue happening until there is a two-state solution.
I believe the Biden administration has been pushing for a two-state solution.
Yes.
Israel has been open to a two-state solution. Tom, I'm telling you, if a two-state solution was the answer, it could have been put in place already. But when folks want to totally wipe Israel out and take over just one state is what they want without Israel being part of it, then you can't talk a two-state to anyone who wants one state. So that's just not going to happen. I mean, and I'm not trying to be cruel and insensitive. I mean, I'm concerned about the innocent people dying also. But I understand that that's the cost of war, Tom. Innocent people are going to die.
Oh, I agree.
Which is why you don't enter into war unless it's the absolute last thing you have to do to defend yourself. But you don't use it as a first strike to make a point, because now this thing has been escalated. Now there's even more hurt feelings, more people dead. And then what's going to happen in the next generation? All these young people growing up, watching people die, all the devastation, that's going to be impacting on them as they become adults. And like I said, this thing may continue to escalate until it gets to a point where Israel just says, hey, we've tried attacking and invading and occupying, that doesn't work. So now it's just time to do what they've done. They fired rockets on us, killed our people, attacked. So we're just going to drop a couple of bombs and be done with it. Low yield nukes and wipe them out and be done with it. And then what is the world going to say? What is America going to say? That you can't do that? Well, Tom, that's exactly what we did to Japan.
And that had its consequences as well.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and go, because we had a couple of other things that I wanted to cover.
Oh, okay. We're almost out of time. I'm sorry. What do we have left?
Absolutely, Jimmy. So I don't know if you got a chance to do this, but there was a video that has gone viral over the last couple of days. There was a young sister, it seems like to be a very nice lady, who actually went, I don't know which channel it was. I don't know whether it was Instagram, TikTok, and who was just literally in a state of tears because of the state of affairs. She was a ballet instructor. And so she teaches, I guess, 5 and 6 year olds ballet. And she was literally pleading to parents, you need to start parenting your kids, because she has kids in her class who, when she tells them, like any teacher does, please, stand in your position, do this, do that. And kids are literally saying, no, I don't have to listen to you, shut up. And just 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds.
No, Tom, you didn't get the quote exactly right. You left some out, but go ahead.
But in essence, the kids were being unruly to a grown woman who was in her early 20s, and these are 5 and 6-year-olds, Jimmy, who were basically telling her that they can't tell them anything. And
Well,
she,
what else was said in addition to that, Tom?
well, there was a lot that was said, but one of the things that really broke her down is that the kids were asking to listen to what is it, Pound Town,
Yes.
which I had never heard of before. Don't know the artist whatsoever, but they were wanting to listen to Pound Town, which I guess exacerbated it for her. Which, if you listen to it, I'd never heard of the artist or the music. Extremely explicit, but
It's sexually explicit, Tom. That's what Pound Town. Yes.
exactly, and I'm not even recommending that you go out there
At
and
5 and 6 years old, Tom.
at 5 and 6 years old. So I'm not even recommending that you give any airtime to this artist and or to this particular track, Jimmy. But all I can say is this: after listening to it myself, it is absolutely atrocious. It's
Yes, it is.
trash, and there is no reason that any parent should ever have their 5 or 6 or even 12 or 14-year-old or 16-year-old listening to this
But
mess.
Tom, this is what not having strong fathers in the home do. Your kids become susceptible to these things, and I'm not even going to blame it on the poor mother. I mean, a lot of single mothers are doing the best they can, and even when there are fathers in the house, if you're not a strong father, because maybe you've been chemically altered by the food and the water and the pesticides. But Tom, we need to get to a point where we're protecting our children, and this type of behavior is just unacceptable. And you need some strong fathers in the home to make sure. 5 years old, Tom, 6 years old. This is ridiculous. I mean,
Telling and this is
a
the
grown
key.
person is yes,
This is the key. This is a lack of respect for adults and people in
true.
positions of authority. And she is a ballet teacher, which means to me that the parents are paying her maybe for these services, and the kids get in there. They can't stand in one place. They're not listening to the teacher. They're talking back to her.
And
I
Tom, it's a
mean,
very strict discipline.
yes.
I mean, it takes years to master that art form, and the fact that these young girls are at 5 years old can't respect authority. Well, first the teacher just kicked them out. Just say, hey, don't come back. Excuse me. I don't need the money that bad to put up with this, because that kind of belligerent behavior becomes contagious. And then other children will see that behavior and see kids getting away with it and decide to emulate it or imitate it. So back in the daytime, that would have warranted a belt, somebody taking it out and whooping some ass, and then sending your child home saying, "Hey, yeah, I had to discipline your child for this reason." And I
and,
hope
and,
that
and,
the
and, the,
parents
and, the,
didn't.
and the child comes home with a snotty nose and crying, and then they tell, well, what happened? And then they get another whipping by the parent because of
Yes.
what they weren't doing.
Oh, because Tom, you've embarrassed your parents now. That's the worst thing. When I was growing up, one of the worst things that could happen is if one of the neighbors had to bring you home and tell your parents that you were cutting up or they caught you doing something bad, and you embarrassed the hell out of your parents in the neighborhood. Because now everybody's talking about, well, wondering why, Mr. and Mrs. Can't control their kill children any better. Yeah, you don't want to get that bad child label placed on you by the neighbors. So that would result in 2 or 3 whoopings.
And Jimmy, the sad part about it is that we have reached a stage in our culture
Hmm.
where this is acceptable, because what that tells me is that if a 5-year-old has the unmitigated gall to tell a teacher that they can't make them sit in place, that they can't make them stop talking when they're being disruptive or unruly, that I guarantee you that that kid is actually probably saying that to the parents as well.
I hope not, Tom.
Why would they be saying it to a teacher if they had not? Because I believe that behavior starts at home.
It does start at home. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm hoping that if that's the case, Tom, that maybe this is just an overworked, overstressed mother who doesn't have any support from a strong husband or father in their lives that's causing this.
I don't know, Jimmy, but with that being said, if this young lady is appealing to parents to parent your children. This is a sad state of
It
affairs
is very sad, Tom.
in our communities. And to your point, as mothers and fathers, regardless of whether you're in the same house or not, you have the responsibility for making sure that your kids
Absolutely.
have certain values, that they respect authority, not that they would allow an adult to do anything to them because there are other issues there, but they should at least respect their elders and respect those in a position of authority. Because what happens is when you don't do that, not just girls but boys as well, when they get out into the real world, they're going to be looking at a gun in between their eyes if they don't learn, and it may be from someone with a badge on. So you better be real
True.
careful as to what you are or not teaching your children.
Well, Tom, either one way or the other, you're going to have to follow the rules. So either you voluntarily follow them and become a law-abiding citizen, or you end up in jail where someone's forcing you
Or
to,
worse, in a coffin.
or in the coffin. So, and so parents don't. You're not helping your children by not providing discipline. I mean, there's a reason why the Bible says that we should all respect authority for a reason. So it just creates a more orderly process. If the authority is wrong, you can work that out later on. But in the meantime, but initially you need to respect authority, Tom. And the teacher, if the teacher is telling you to do something that was untoward, then take it to your parents. Let your parents deal with that. But you don't sit back there and mouth off and tell a teacher what you're not going to do and what they can't do. Yeah, kids today, man. That's why I couldn't be a teacher, Tom. I'd be in jail. I'd be calling Miss Patterson up and saying, "Hey, come get me out because I've been killed one of these little kids."
Yeah. And Jimmy, with that being said, we want to definitely show our support for this young sister who is trying to make a positive and constructive influence in the lives of
You
these
pray
young
for the parents,
Yeah,
Tom.
I'm praying for this sister because she says, you know what, I wear bows. I try to be, as on my game as I possibly can to show these young girls, these 5-year-olds, how to be young ladies. And they are being totally disruptive, listening to trash that they shouldn't be listening to. And that's really on the parents. But
Yes, it is.
we've got to put our hands around these parents because let's be very clear, Jimmy. It started in our generation because our generation had some parenting failures, and it looks like it's
It's
continuing.
had some. Oh, Tom, you being kind.
Two
Had
times.
some. Yeah, we spend far too much time trying to be friends with our kids
Yes,
and rebelling against the things that our parents did to keep us in line.
true.
And now the chickens have come home to roost, as
Yes.
they would say.
I need
We're
some big
paying the
old I
price.
need some big chickens coming home to roost. Big chickens.
That's why we need to get some big belts out, Tom.
These are hens. These are not
Yes.
chickens. These are hens coming on the roost.
That's why we need to get the belts back out. I'm all for leather therapy to get this back on track, Tom.
Yeah, Jimmy. And before we close out, because we're a little bit over time, what we do know and what we do want to say is happy Thanksgiving to everybody and
Yes.
their families who are watching this show. We're going to have a bunch of eating, drinking, and being merry tomorrow.
Be safe
Make sure
tomorrow.
that you are safe on your driving. But also after Thanksgiving, what comes on the next day? It's called Black Friday, where folks spend a lot of money
Not with us.
products in preparation for Christmas, Jimmy. And I found a very interesting article on the Black Information Network, which is one of my research sources for some of the things that I find. And I found some interesting businesses where it looks like you can order things online. And so what we're advocating is for those who are watching this show and everyone.
Spend some black money with black businesses.
Exactly. So
on Black Friday.
I'm going to show a couple of interesting products that I thought were pretty interesting.
Okay.
The first is called Creamalicious, which is a Black-owned dessert company. And Jimmy,
Can they ship it cold, Tom?
It looks pretty good, Jimmy. Creamalicious ice cream and Creamalicious desserts.
Okay.
Owned by a sister. So, man, I've never heard of it before, but we need to find out. Search this company and find out where they are and see if you can get some of that because it sounds good. And I definitely hope that we can help put some money in these pockets. The next one, Dr. Flavor Spices, Jimmy. We can do some cooking, some good cooking and some good eating. So we got to have some spices to go along with that.
Yeah, Tom, they have a low sodium one, though, for me.
Okay, well, hopefully she has some low sodium options as well, Jimmy. So, again, just go to Google and search these companies out, see if you can find them. Grow our businesses. The next one, Jimmy, we got to do something for the sisters. Everything, absolutely everything curly. We have talked for shows after shows about the millionaires and billions that we have spent in particular on the hair care industry. And so
It's
this
a
is a
multi-billion
black,
dollar business, Tom, that we don't control.
exactly, a black owned hair care products or hair product company. So check them out. Again, we're not advocating, we have not consumed any of these, but there are a ton of companies out there that we need to grow. So just look at them.
And if you have some products and companies, feel free to alert us,
Yes.
and we'll certainly give them a mention, a shout out.
All right, the next one, and I only have a couple of more, is unsung beauty care products, or what we'll call vanity products, which is black owned as well.
Okay.
And finally, Jimmy, this is somebody that we actually know and had on our show, Jimmy, Plush Vodka.
Yes,
Plush
that's right.
Vodka.
We had the brother on here,
Exactly.
and
After
the
you,
consultant who makes the product.
exactly. So after you eat all that turkey and dressing and macaroni and cheese and
Get you a
everything else,
plum drink to wash it
exactly.
down, relax.
Exactly. So if you want to find more companies, black owned companies that you can support and throw your dollars into, look at the Black Information Network. They've got a lot of companies out there that you can do some research on, determine if they are right for you. Because, as Malcolm X said, every other culture has learned how to do this. You come here from Asia, from Europe, and you come here penniless, and then you open small stores. They come into bigger stores, and then you build a network of bigger stores into industries, and then those industries provide jobs. Those industries create wealth. Those industries create economies for your community, Jimmy. And we have to be about doing the same thing.
Yes, we do, Tom.
Exactly. We have a lot of, as you said, barbershops and barbecue shops.
Hair care and barbecue. Yes, that's our
Exactly.
thing. So we need to diverse and look. But Tom, we actually need to look to grow and dominate industries.
That we have
Just participating is a good start. But once we get into it, we need to start trying to figure out how to dominate those industries and grow.
And the only way to do that, Jimmy, is to invest in them, to grow them, to
Yes.
make them better, and to ensure that we continue to grow. Oh, before we do that, we have Miss Bonnie Scott on the line. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Miss Bonnie. Thank you for showing up as well, and Miss Chastity Christian as well. I'm pretty sure she can tell us some stories about what's going on in the classroom
In the
as well.
schools.
Exactly.
Yeah, I pray for Miss Chastity. So yes, that's a rough industry to be in. I don't know if I could do it, Tom. I'd be in jail. So I'd have to call Alyssa up to come get a brother out, help a brother out, beat this charge. So
happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Be safe. Enjoy yourself. Come
yes.
back and tune in next week because we have very special guest, the commish brother Ed Gray, who will be joining us next week. And I guarantee you will not be disappointed once we have this brother on.
Yes. With that being said, we'll see everyone next week. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.